Okay, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I've got a little bit of a problem. Recently, I shot a roll of film on this camera and I was really disappointed with the results. You may have seen some of the videos already. I was up in the Lake District hiking, and although there was tricky lighting conditions in order to get some good shots, I really thought that I had something worthwhile. When I got the scans back from the lab, I was really disappointed. This hurt a little bit more because I was making a video for you guys, and so I wanted to make sure that the scans were of the top quality that I could get, so I paid extra to have TIFFs. I thought this would give me the flexibility and high resolution that I needed, and I paid a grand total of £16.99 for them, only to find that they were a little bit dull and lifeless, and to be perfectly honest, I was hoping for better. So I thought I'd try and experiment a little bit. I've got the negatives here, I've got a high resolution camera of my own. Why don't I try and convert the negatives to positives and scan this film by myself at home? So let's see how I get on, how easy the process is, and were the results worth the effort that I went through. Stay tuned to find out. The first thing that I needed to do was scan the film itself. Now, this required a little bit of equipment. It requires a light source, a camera, I've got a macro lens which I'm going to use, and I've got this film holder from Lomography. With all of these together, it's a pretty simple process. You just have to press your film flat into the film holder. I have two platforms set up so that I can perch the film on it with the light source behind, and then I'm going to use my Canon RP mounted from above with a Canon EF 100mm f2.8 macro lens. I'm taking photos of all the negatives with manual focus, making sure everything is honed in. At f8, I've got my white balance manually set, and I'm hoping that I'll get some pretty clean images which I can then convert in Lightroom. After I went through this process, it took me about 20 minutes to get everything set up and the film completely shot. Now it's time to transfer them across to my PC and convert the negatives to a positive. So let's do it. I'm going to use a plugin called Negative Lab Pro, which is going to help me convert these negatives into positives. Not sponsored, it's just the only one that I know of, and I'm going to be using that to convert these negatives to positives. It is meant to be a pretty simple process. You just fire up the plugin within Lightroom, click the convert negative button, and it'll convert it to a proper image. There's a range of different options as well to mimic different types of film scanners, and I found the plugin to be excellent. It's relatively quick as well, so no hanging around. I'm not gonna lie though, the one thing that was a little bit tricky was trying to get the hang of getting the colors right.
Oh my God, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the?
I don't know what I did wrong. Maybe it was the ambient lighting in the room, but you'll see on some of the scans that that was the main thing. I really had to fiddle around for a while just to get the colors looking realistic. But let's have a look at what you came here for, some of the results. I got my laptop here. Let's take a look at some of the images. Now, some of these mountain shots that I got, I thought were some of the most disappointing. You can see here that the lab scans are really quite flat. It's not helped by the lighting conditions, but I definitely thought that, to my eye at least at the time, it definitely looked like it had much more depth than this. So this was the first one that I scanned. Now you can see straight away there are several differences. The first one, which I love, is that you get the strip at the top and bottom of the film alongside other images on this roll. Also, if you zoom in, you can see I haven't done a great job of this. I'm not a particularly precise person, and none of these scans are going to be precise. However, I do really love it. I could easily remove that with Photoshop. Up here, there's some slight discoloration coming through, and it's equal to the holes in the film. If anyone knows why, I would love to hear in the comment section. But overall, I wasn't looking for a professional result, I would say. I was just looking for something a little bit more lifelike than what had been delivered by the lab. And I think, at least to my eye, that this is pretty cool. This one here was one of my favorite scans from the lab. I thought this was a great image and I quite liked it. You can see the grain was really pleasing on this one. And this is when I scanned it at home. I have to say, I really like this one as well. You can see, for some reason, I was worried that the grain wouldn't transfer well across when I was scanning it at home, but it's still there and it still looks great. One of the main things I like straight away about some of these self-scanned images is that the contrast is much more to my liking and the colors are much more realistic than the actual lab scans itself. This is another lab scan. Again, one I was really disappointed with. I thought that this looked much more epic in the moment. The lab scan itself is very flat and there's not much in the way of color contrast, which I thought that there was at the time when I was looking at it with my eyes. You can see here is my scan. First of all, this red bit on the side is crazy. I love that personally. But you can see as well well that the colors are just much richer. Everything has a little bit more contrast. It just pops out a little bit more at me. And overall, I just much prefer this style of image. I also really enjoy just putting them in this aspect ratio. It comes across as much more organic in my mind, and I really like that. This was a scan that I got from the lab that I actually really liked. I thought that this came across really well. That is very much what it looked like in the moment, and I thought that this shot with the mountain and the path looks really good. This was my scan of it. I think perhaps the scan that I got from the lab is a little bit better than my version, but you can see here I still really like the way that this has come across. I think the depth of the shadows is really nice as well. Overall, pretty good still. You can see here it continues. I think that my scans have got a lot more depth and a lot more color contrast, and I like that personally, but it still retains that really filmic look, and it looks like it was shot on Kodak Gold 200 still. This one is another one where you can see the photographer on the mountain. I think my version, my scan, is just so much better. It's still got all of that detail. It's still got all of that grain. I think it looks absolutely great. Now, we've got some portraits. I've got this portrait of Liz here, and you can see this is one where I think maybe the lab did a better job. I was trying to tweak this one to make it look more realistic, but for some reason there's just an overriding blue tone. There's so many steps to the process when trying to digitize these at home. Any tiny thing can throw off the end product. So I don't know what it was, whether it was the ambient light in the room, but something about the color temperature on this one just wasn't right, and I found it a little bit difficult to control that in Negative Lab Pro. This one, on the other hand, I really like this picture. It's one of my favorite from the roll. I think that film is perfect for portraits, and this is a great example of it. The smoothness of the skin tones here is really good, and yet I think my version of my scan is so much nicer. I wasn't expecting that. I love this image. I couldn't be more pleased with my decision to self-scan this film at this point. I think this one as well, you can see the roll-off of the highlights on the lab scan. It's just a little bit harsh, but if I forward it on, you're going to see that with my particular scan, I've managed to recover it. You'll see here that there's a big kind of burn mark. That was on the original negative when I got it back from the lab, so that was nothing to do with me. But overall, I really like this shot as well. We've got some portraits of me, and you can see the difference there. I think this one, I maybe went a little bit too green on the color balance, but overall, I still like the contrast. This one as well, I think came out pretty good. This one, I think, has one of the biggest differences between the self-scan and the lab scan. So we have this shop here. I thought that this was a really good image when I took it, and then I got it back and it looked so washed out and lifeless that I was a little bit disappointed. But then when I scanned it myself, this is so much closer to what it looked like in real life that I'm just so happy. It's images like this that make the whole process really worth it, I think. This bench by the water was another one of my favorites when I got it back from the lab, and I think I did a pretty good job of getting this digitized myself. I think slightly cooler temperature, but again, that's kind of what I thought it looked like at the time, and I have this incredible border around it with other images as well. So I'm really happy with that one. You can see some more differences here. This boat one was quite interesting. Now, you've seen the images, so let me know in the comment section what you think. Was it worth me investing the time and effort to scan them myself? From my perspective, I think this was brilliant. I love the self-scan versions. I think that the filmic quality still really came across even when I scanned it at home, and it's definitely something that I'm going to do on all of the rolls that I send off to get developed now. The biggest thing, of course, is that previously I was paying £16.99 for some TIFF scans, but at the same lab, if I was just to get development and no scans at all, it would cost me £3.50, which is much more economical and allows me to shoot more rolls of film. It also means that I only get 36 shots anyway, and half of them probably aren't going to be good, and I'll never actually use them for anything. Now, I'm no longer paying money to get high definition scans of them from the lab, which I'm never going to use. So it works out really well. The other thing that I really enjoyed is having those borders on the film strip itself. It just gives so much more context to the medium of the shot, and to me it just makes it seem more like film than the actual lab scans themselves. Now you can see this isn't a professional image, and if you're looking for that, then I would probably recommend either getting really good at this process by yourself or finding a more professional lab where they specialize in a lot more vivid scans. I know now that when I get my film back from the lab and perhaps I'm not satisfied, or I thought that the shots could be a bit better based on the conditions I was shooting in at the time, I know that some of those problems can be fixed by myself. I can take it into my own hands and scan it here at home. I also feel like it just added to the film experience. That time of setting everything up and scanning them across and watching them come to life on my computer, it made me feel more involved with the creation of those images rather than just waiting for the scans to be sent to me via a Dropbox link from my lab. So that was pretty cool as well. So that was it for today's video. Let me know what you thought about the difference between the two images. I'd be really interested to hear what all of you have to say. Likewise, if you have any tips for me for next time when I'm scanning some of my own negatives, please do let me know. I'm always looking to improve. I make videos like this every single week, so if you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. And without further ado, I'll see you next time.